In this class, let us discuss about mainly two topics. We'll start with introduction of leukemias, then move ahead and discuss myeloid leukemias, and end the topic with polycythemias. The learning objectives for this class are to understand basic naming of various leukemias, to understand the difference between acute and chronic type of leukemias, similarly myeloid and lymphoid types of leukemias, to be able to explain about AML and CML in terms of definition, pathogenesis, clinical features, and lab diagnosis. Both of these can be important questions for your exams. To understand the different types of polycythemias and the features which help in differentiating between them. Let us quickly revise about the cells in the lineage of both myeloid series as well as lymphoid series. Myeloid series, we have already had a discussion. It starts with myeloblast, then moves on to become promyelocyte, then myelocyte, metamyelocyte, band form, and segmented form, which is the mature neutrophil. The lymphoid lineage is a bit more simpler in that the number of cells in the lineage is less. There's lymphoblast, prolymphocyte, and lymphocyte. Pictures of the lymphoid series I'll show you once we discuss lymphoid leukemias in the next class. Coming to the nomenclature of leukemia, leukemias can be named based on the number of precursor cells and also based on the lineage of the cells. Based on the number, it could either be a chronic leukemia or an acute leukemia. An acute leukemia will have more than 20% of blast cells in bone marrow, whereas a chronic leukemia will have less than 20% of blast cells in bone marrow. Even in peripheral smear, if you get more than 20% blast, then you can call it an acute leukemia. Based on the lineage, it could either be of myeloid lineage or a lymphoid lineage. So using these four names, we can get four different types of leukemias, which are the basic types of leukemias you need to know. The first one is acute myeloid leukemia. The second one is acute lymphoid leukemia. Third one, chronic myeloid leukemia and chronic lymphoid leukemia. They also have some other names which we will discuss when we talk about them individually. An acute myeloid leukemia will have more than 20% of myeloblasts and or promyelocytes. A chronic myeloid leukemia will have less than 20% blasts, myeloblasts or myeloblasts and promyelocytes. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia or acute lymphoid leukemia will have more than 20% of lymphoblasts, whereas a chronic lymphocytic leukemia or a chronic lymphoid leukemia will have less than 20% of lymphoblasts. Let's start the discussion with acute myeloid leukemia. The other name for this is acute myelogenous leukemia. Myeloblastic leukemia also you may call it, because the number of blast cells or immature cells are more in this. Acute myeloid leukemia is characterized by the presence of a malignant clone of myeloid cells in the bone marrow, which is the factory, with maturation arrest at the level of blast. So in the lineage, myeloid lineage, which starts with myeloblast, if there is no differentiation beyond the level of myeloblast or beyond the level of promyelocyte, that is called a maturation arrest. So whenever the cell multiplies in number, whenever the cell divides and multiplies in number, the number of blasts itself will increase and not the subsequent mature cells. That is the problem in acute myeloid leukemia. There are a bunch of factors which can cause AML, that is acute myeloid leukemia. Some of them include genetic disorders like Down syndrome, Klinefelter syndrome, and Fanconi anemia, radiation, which was apparent in Hiroshima Nagasaki bombing, then chemicals such as benzene, smoking, pesticides, drugs such as chloramphenicol and phenylbutazone, certain hematological diseases like aplastic anemia, and one precursor condition of leukemia is called myelodysplastic syndrome. These are some of the causative factors of AML. Kindly remember some of them, which will be useful for your exams when you write the answer. A few words on myelodysplastic syndrome. It's a precursor of acute myeloid leukemia, and the presentation is a patient comes to you with an infection, you get the blood workup done, and you see that in the peripheral blood there are less number of cells. It could be either less RBCs only, or RBCs and WBCs, RBCs and WBCs and platelets, etc. in various combinations. When you do a bone marrow examination, you'll see certain dysplastic features such as nuclear bridging, increased lobation of the nucleus, etc. Various types of myelodysplastic syndromes are there, such as MDS with single lineage dysplasia in which only one lineage is affected, MDS with ringed sideroblasts, MDS with multilineage dysplasia with excess blasts, isolated deletion of 5q limb of chromosome, unclassifiable MDS, childhood MDS, etc. Coming to the molecular pathogenesis of acute myeloid leukemia, there are multiple mutations which can give rise to AML. It could be in the form of chromosomal translocations, inversions, deletions, etc. What happens is there is disruption in genes which encode transcription factors normally, and because of that disruption there is excessive proliferation of blasts, and also there is a maturation arrest. AML can be classified by two methods. The first one is the WHO classification, and the second one is the French, American, British classification, or the FAB classification. Let us talk about the WHO classification. AML is broadly divided into 6 types in the WHO classification, namely acute myeloid leukemia with recurrent genetic abnormalities, AML with myelodysplasia related changes, therapy related myeloid neoplasms, AML not otherwise specified or NOS, then there is myeloid sarcoma, then myeloid proliferations associated with Down syndrome. The FAB classification is slightly more important when you are writing the answers for exams. In FAB classification, there are 8 classes starting from M0 to M7. M0, the name is minimally differentiated AML. M1 is AML which has differentiated, however, there is no maturation. M2 is AML with maturation, so M2 will have differentiation and maturation. M3 is acute promyelocytic leukemia. Then M4 is acute myelomonocytic leukemia. M5 acute monocytic leukemia. M6 is acute erythroleukemia, and M7 is acute megakaryocytic leukemia. The basis for this classification is 1 morphology and 2 cytochemistry. So differentiation means resemblance to a particular lineage. So M0, if you see minimally differentiated AML, if you look at the cells, you cannot clearly say whether they belong to myeloid lineage or not. So that is why it is called minimally differentiated. Maturation is the degree of development in a particular lineage. So blasts will go on to become promyelocyte. So that is what is called maturation. So in AML, however, there is a maturation arrest. So the maximum in the neutrophil myeloid series is promyelocyte, which is M3, acute promyelocytic leukemia. After that, in monocytic type also you can have AML. Then you can have in the erythroid series. Then you can also have in the platelet or the megakaryocytic series. For completion's sake, let us look into various cytochemical reactions in acute leukemia. Not very important for your exams, I must say. The first stain is myeloperoxidase. So myeloblasts strong positive for this myeloperoxidase stain. Next is Sudan black B. Again, myeloblasts are strongly positive for this stain. Then there is specific esterase for which myeloblasts are strongly positive. Then there is non-specific esterase for which monoblasts are strongly positive. And then there is finally periodic acid skiff for PAS stain for which lymphoblasts are positive, show a coarse block-like positivity. Using both the microscopic appearance of the immature or blast cells and the cytochemical staining properties, you can type AML into a particular class in the FAB classification. For WHO classification, you will have to do genetic studies. Moving on to the clinical features of AML, some general features like fatigue, tiredness, malaise, then bleeding due to low platelets, disseminated intravascular coagulation which is seen in acute promyelocytic leukemia. So in the lineage I told you, promyelocytes have numerous primary granules, right? If the contents of those primary granules are suddenly released, it will lead to vessel wall injury as well as activation of the clotting pathway. So because of that, there will be thrombosis and bleeding in the patient. After DIC, you have gum hypertrophy, which is seen in AML types M4 and M5. Then you have bone pain, and finally hepatosplenomegaly. These are the clinical features that can be seen in a patient having acute myeloid leukemia. Coming to the laboratory findings, in AML, hemoglobin will be reduced and the total count obviously is increased, that is the total WBC count is obviously increased because the number of blast cells are more. Generally, the total count will be ranging from 20,000 to 1 lakh. Sometimes it can be reduced. If it is reduced, then it is known by an old obsolete clinical entity known as subleukemic leukemia or aleukemic leukemia. Peripheral smear examination will reveal a normocytic normochromic type of an anemia in RBCs. WBC number will be increased and mature cells would be reduced in number. Most of the times it is myeloblasts, at least more than 20%. Differential count will have more than 20% myeloblasts. Platelets variably will be reduced in cases of acute myeloid leukemia because production of myeloblasts will be so high that there is a suppression of the production of other cells like RBCs and platelets. Coming to the bone marrow examination, the number of cells in the bone marrow is increased, so that is why it is called a hypercellular marrow. Myeloid is to erythroid ratio, if you see, myeloid cells are increased in number. So that is why ME ratio will be very high. Other lineages are reduced in number because of suppression by the overgrowth of these myeloid lineage cells. Here is a peripheral smear image of acute myeloid leukemia. There is an arrow pointing towards a cell. So that cell is a small lymphocyte used for size comparison with the myeloblast. The arrow head is pointing towards a myeloblast. So characteristically we know what a myeloblast looks like. It's a round cell, irregular nuclear membrane, then very big nucleus, less amount of cytoplasm. In the nucleus there is fine interlaced chromatin and 2 to 5 nucleoli. So all these large cells that you are seeing apart from that small lymphocyte are myeloblasts. If you do a differential count in this peripheral smear, you should be getting more than 20% of myeloblasts. That is why it is called acute myeloid leukemia. Other useful investigations for the diagnosis of acute myeloid leukemia include flow cytometry for identification of antigens that are present inside or on the cell. You can also do fluorescent in situ hybridization or FISH to detect genetic abnormalities for WHO classification. Myeloproliferative neoplasms are a set of disorders among which two important diseases you need to know. First one is chronic myeloid leukemia, second is polycythemia vera. Some common features are there which we'll talk about when we discuss those topics. Let's start with chronic myeloid leukemia. It's a type of myeloproliferative neoplasm or myeloproliferative disorder characterized by increased proliferation of myeloid progenitors. However, as opposed to acute myeloid leukemia, these precursors or progenitors, they still have the capacity to mature. So an abnormal malignant cell in CML, that is a myeloblast, will become promyelocyte. That promyelocyte will become myelocyte, metamyelocyte, band form, neutrophil, like that. In acute myeloid leukemia, we saw that there was a maturation arrest. Here there is no arrest as such. Other names are chronic myelogenous leukemia as well as chronic granulocytic leukemia. Very less causes are known for CML. CML was observed in the survivors of Hiroshima Nagasaki nuclear bomb blast. Then benzene can lead to CML. Coming to the molecular pathogenesis of chronic myeloid leukemia, this one thing you need to know, Philadelphia chromosome, very important, can be asked as a 3-mark question. Philadelphia chromosome basically is an abnormal fusion between the genes BCR and ABL in the 22nd chromosome. This ABL gene, it normally encodes tyrosine kinase and it is regulated properly in the chromosome number 9 in normal individuals. In Philadelphia chromosome, what happens is one portion of chromosome number 9 goes and attaches to one more portion in the chromosome number 22, that is breakpoint cluster region. When this abnormal fusion happens, there is a loss in the regulation of ABL gene. So there is a continuous production of this tyrosine kinase leading to excessive proliferation. This is a schematic representation of Philadelphia chromosome. Normal chromosome number 9 will have an ABL gene and normal chromosome 22 will have a breakpoint cluster region. So the chromosomes, that the limbs of the chromosomes at those regions will break up and they will reverse and attach to each other. So whatever was broken off from the chromosome 22 will come and attach to chromosome 9. Whatever was broken off from chromosome number 9 will go and attach to chromosome number 22. This is what is reciprocal translocation. Now the new chromosome 22 which is formed is what is known as Philadelphia chromosome, and in this Philadelphia chromosome there is an abnormal fusion between BCR and ABL1 gene. This is why tyrosine kinase production is not regulated properly, and tyrosine kinase stimulates the production of more and more number of cells. Clinically, older individuals are affected by chronic myeloid leukemia generally in their 5th to 6th decades of age. Gender wise, males are more commonly affected as compared to females, possibly because exposure to various carcinogens are higher in males. CML will have a gradual start, slowly it will start, and initially the patients will have non-specific symptoms such as tiredness, weakness, loss of weight, loss of hunger, fullness in the abdomen. Sometimes they may have bleeding and gout. If you examine a patient with chronic myeloid leukemia, that patient will be anemic. So that is why pallor will be seen in the lower palpebral conjunctiva. The patient will have enlarged spleen and liver and sometimes can have lymph node enlargement. In this image, you can see enlargement of spleen starting from the left hypochondrium extending towards the right iliac fossa in the direction of that yellow arrow. In its course, this CML has three phases. First is the chronic phase, which is stable or indolent phase. Second one is the accelerated phase, and the third one is called blast crisis. So C, A and B. In the first phase, that is the chronic phase, the patients usually will have anemia, or sometimes their hemoglobin may be normal as well. WBC count in chronic phase will be very high, around 1 lakh or so. If a peripheral smear examination is done in the chronic phase of chronic myeloid leukemia, RBCs will have normocytic normochromic anemia similar to what you saw in AML. WBCs, the count will be increased with average count being 1.7 lakhs. There will be a shift to left in granulocytes. By shift to left, what I mean is immature forms of neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils will be there in the peripheral blood, namely starting from myeloblast, promyelocyte, myelocyte, metamyelocyte, band forms and including neutrophils. However, in the chronic phase, the number of myeloblasts will be less than 10% and most of the neutrophil series in the peripheral blood will be neutrophils and myelocytes. Along with these cells, eosinophils and basophils will also be increased in number, and in relation to platelets, we'll see that the platelet count is mildly increased. Bone marrow examination, when we do, we will see that the number of cells in the bone marrow is increased, which is what is called a hypercellular marrow. The number of RBC production is reduced. Myeloid is to erythroid ratio is very high because the myeloid component, that is the numerator, is high in this. Myeloblasts are less than 10% because there is differentiation, that is maturation of myeloblasts into their subsequent stages. Basophils and eosinophils and their precursors will also be increased in number, and megakaryocytes, which are nothing but platelet precursors, those also will be increased in number. Here is a bone marrow image showing chronic phase of chronic myeloid leukemia. The yellow arrow is pointing to a cell which has bluish to purplish large granules in its cytoplasm. That clearly is a basophil. Next arrow is the sky blue colored arrow, which is pointing to a cell which has orange colored large granules in the cytoplasm, so that clearly is an eosinophil. Next arrow is the orange colored one showing 4 lobes in a granulocyte, so that is a mature neutrophil. And then there is a red colored arrow pointing at a cell which has a oval eccentric nucleus with the prominent perinuclear Hoff. In its nucleus, we are also able to see 2 clear areas which are nucleoli, so that is a promyelocyte. In CML, the number of cells produced is very high, even higher than acute myeloid leukemia. So if the cells being produced are high, then the cells being destroyed are also high. So because of this, what will happen is the number of macrophages in the bone marrow will increase to eat up whatever dead component of these cells are present. These are called pseudo-Gaucher cells or sea blue histiocytes. Apart from the presence of pseudo-Gaucher cells, as chronic myeloid leukemia progresses, eventually there will be fibrosis of the bone marrow. This is called myelofibrosis. This is the microscopic image of a bone marrow aspiration. Here a blue colored arrow is pointing to a large cell with a round nucleus and sky blue colored cytoplasm. So that is a sea blue histiocyte or a pseudo-Gaucher cell. In other investigations, we can do serum uric acid, serum LDH, alkaline phosphatase, and vitamin B12, and these could be increased due to the excessive cell turnover. Fluorescent in situ hybridization or FISH can be done to detect the BCR-ABL fusion gene, which is what is called Philadelphia chromosome. In the accelerated phase of CML, blast percentage will be more than the chronic phase, that is ranging from 10% to 19%. There will be excessive splenomegaly, that is enlargement of spleen, even higher WBC count, and some more chromosomal abnormalities. In blast crisis, if we see, the blast percentage is more than 20. So in chronic phase less than 10, accelerated phase 10 to 19, and in blast crisis more than 20. In blast crisis, even further increase in spleen size will be there, even more increase in WBC count, the differential count of basophils more than 20 it will be, and the platelet count will be reduced. In chronic phase, remember, platelet count had mildly increased, here it is reduced. And bone marrow, if you see, you will get a dry tap. This is because of a full-blown myelofibrosis. This is an image showing one of the two phases, that is accelerated phase bar blast crisis, because we do not get too many cells to actually tell what phase this is. However, here you can see that the number of cells with the nucleoli are high, implying that it is either an accelerated phase or a blast crisis, unlikely to be a chronic phase. The blue colored arrow is pointing to a basophil and the yellow colored arrow is pointing to a blast. So it has 5 nucleoli if you see properly. Another image of one of those two phases, the red arrow is pointing to a blast. You can see a couple of nucleoli there, and the yellow arrow is pointing to a basophil precursor with too many dark blue to purple colored granules in the cytoplasm. Moving on to the last topic of the class, which is polycythemia. The other name for this is erythrocytosis. So polycythemia is something like the opposite of anemia. In anemia, hemoglobin was low and RBC count and other parameters were low. In polycythemia, there is increase in both RBCs and also in the hemoglobin level. Polycythemia can be classified into two main types. The first is relative polycythemia or a pseudo polycythemia. The second is an absolute polycythemia. Under absolute polycythemia, we have two types again. The first one is a polycythemia vera or the primary polycythemia, and second one is the secondary polycythemia. So in the chronic myeloproliferative diseases, that is myeloproliferative neoplasms list, when you see, polycythemia vera was there. So this is a type of a myeloproliferative neoplasm. A few words on relative polycythemia. When we spoke about introduction of hematology, we had seen that hemoglobin is expressed as hemoglobin in gram per deciliter of plasma, right? So imagine a scenario in which plasma volume is depleted, for example, in vomiting or diarrhea or in burns patient. Then when you estimate hemoglobin, it will actually appear to be high. So that is why this is called a pseudopolycythemia. The hemoglobin or RBCs are not actually high, but due to reduced plasma volume, they are interpreted to be high. It is associated with one syndrome called Guess-Box syndrome, which is seen in middle-aged individuals who are obese. They also have hypertension and by nature they are extremely anxious. In absolute polycythemia, there is a true increase in the red cell mass as opposed to relative, in which it was falsely increased. So in this, primary polycythemia is the myeloproliferative neoplasm, also called polycythemia vera, whereas secondary polycythemia is a compensatory increase in hemoglobin and RBCs due to various reasons. So polycythemia vera is a malignant condition in the bone marrow. Here the problem is that activating point mutations are present in JAK2 gene. So that is why excessive synthesis of tyrosine kinase is there, which will go and cause proliferation of various cells in the bone marrow, including neutrophil lineage, RBC lineage and megakaryocytic or platelet lineage. So that is why this is called pan-myelosis. All these cells that are being produced in the bone marrow, namely RBCs, WBCs, that is particularly neutrophils, and platelets, that is thrombocytes, are all increased. In CML, it was mainly the granulocytes, the neutrophil, eosinophil, basophil lineage which was increased. In chronic phase, we saw that megakaryocytes had also increased. However, in polycythemia vera, all cell lineages are increased. In a normal individual, what happens? Whenever there is a growth factor stimulating a receptor, there is activation of this JAK2 pathway leading to proliferation of cells. In polycythemia vera, due to a mutation, what happens that despite the absence of growth factor, the JAK2 pathway, signaling pathway, will always remain active, leading to excessive proliferation of cells. This polycythemia vera affects older individuals, something that is a common feature between polycythemia vera and CML. Patients present with headache, dizziness and blurring of vision. The reason for this is increase in the viscosity of blood due to excessive RBCs, excessive platelets, leading to thrombosis, that is clot formation. Because of this, blood supply to eyes and to brain, everything is affected, leading to various symptoms. This polycythemia vera again has phases. First one is a proliferative phase wherein the number of RBCs keep on increasing. There is a burnt out phase next, in which RBC production will stop, leading to a stable level of RBCs. In the third stage, there is myelofibrosis, in which bone marrow examination, if you do, you will see lots of fibrosis, and splenomegaly will be there in patients because spleen has now started producing RBCs and other cells. And the last phase is development of acute myeloid leukemia from the myelofibrosis. It may be seen in 2 to 5% of cases. For the diagnosis of polycythemia vera, WHO has given certain guidelines. The guidelines for diagnosis include 3 major criteria and 1 minor criterion. For diagnosis, either all 3 major criteria should be present, or first 2 major criteria and the minor criterion should be positive. The major criteria include increased hemoglobin, hematocrit and RBC mass. The second criteria is presence of pan-myelosis in the bone marrow, that is increase in granulocytes, RBCs, RBC precursors as well as megakaryocytes in the bone marrow. This is what is called a pan-myelosis or trilineage hyperplasia, that is 3 cell lines, 3 lineages are increased, so trilineage hyperplasia. Third one is demonstration of a mutation in the JAK2 pathway, and minor criterion includes subnormal erythropoietin levels. So when too many RBCs are being produced, there is a negative feedback because of which kidney reduces the production of erythropoietin. So that is why subnormal serum erythropoietin level indicates polycythemia vera. Here is a table for you to distinguish between polycythemia vera and secondary polycythemia. In polycythemia vera, the oxygen saturation is normal. In secondary polycythemia, the oxygen saturation is low. So low oxygen saturation is what causes secondary polycythemia to occur. So low oxygen saturation is seen, one, in smokers, second, in people who live at high altitudes, for example Kashmir. So in them hemoglobin will be elevated. Next difference is in the serum erythropoietin levels. Because of low oxygen saturation in people who live at high altitudes or in people who are smokers, what happens is there is excessive production of erythropoietin from the kidneys. So that is what leads to increased hemoglobin and RBCs. However, in polycythemia vera, the production of RBCs is not dependent on erythropoietin levels. So there is now a negative feedback which causes kidney to reduce the production of erythropoietin. So in polycythemia vera, erythropoietin levels will be decreased, whereas in secondary polycythemia, the erythropoietin levels will be increased. Next, coming to blood counts, total WBC count, basophil count, platelet count, all these will be increased in polycythemia vera because it's a trilineage hyperplasia. Granulocytic, then erythroid as well as megakaryocytic should be increased in polycythemia vera. Whereas in secondary polycythemia, only RBCs are affected, rest of the counts are not affected. That is WBC count, in that basophil count as well as platelet counts will all be normal. Next is the leukocyte alkaline phosphatase. This we also saw in leukemoid reaction, difference between CML and leukemoid reaction. Leukocyte alkaline phosphatase, however, in polycythemia vera is increased. Please remember this. In CML it was reduced, in polycythemia vera it is increased. Whereas in secondary polycythemia, the lab score will be normal. Leukocyte alkaline phosphatase score will be normal. In polycythemia vera, there will be increased turnover of cells, of all cells. That is why vitamin B12 levels will be increased, whereas in secondary polycythemia, the vitamin B12 levels will be normal. Bone marrow, if you do, polycythemia vera will show a trilineage hyperplasia or a pan-myelinosis, whereas in secondary polycythemia, only the RBC precursors are increased, which is what is called erythroid hyperplasia. Splenomegaly, that is increase in the size of spleen, is present in polycythemia vera, whereas it is absent in secondary polycythemia. These are the differences using which you can distinguish between polycythemia vera and secondary polycythemia. To summarize this class, we named leukemias based on two main parameters. First one is the number of blasts. Second one is the lineage. Based on this, four types of leukemias we obtained: AML, ALL, CML and CLL. In AML, we saw that the basic defect was maturation arrest at the level of either blast or promyelocyte, leading to excessive production of these blasts and promyelocytes and less of mature cells. We discussed a few causative agents. Then we spoke about the molecular pathogenesis, in which we saw that many mutations led to this AML. Then we discussed about two classifications. First was the WSO classification, second one was the FAB classification. In this FAB classification, please remember M0 to M7, including the names of those M0 to M7 classes. Then we discussed the diagnosis in terms of clinical features and laboratory findings. In laboratory findings, we saw that number of blasts should be more than 20%, that is number of myeloblasts should be more than 20% for the diagnosis of AML. Then bone marrow findings also, certain things we saw. The next disease we discussed was chronic myeloid leukemia, in which we saw that excessive proliferation is there, however maturation arrest is not there. That is why abnormal cells mature to ultimately become neutrophils. In this, we discussed the Philadelphia chromosome, which is a reciprocal translocation between chromosome number 9 and 22, and the new abnormal chromosome number 22 formed is what is called the Philadelphia chromosome. Then we discussed the diagnosis in terms of clinical features as well as blood findings. Here, when we spoke about the diagnosis, we categorized CML into three phases: chronic phase, accelerated phase and blast crisis. For your exams, if you write the findings of chronic phase it should be enough. Lastly, we spoke about this disease called polycythemia vera, which belonged to the same family as CML, and we saw what the mutation was which led to polycythemia vera. We also discussed in detail how to differentiate between polycythemia vera and secondary polycythemia. That was it for today's class. In next class, we'll discuss 3 more topics, namely acute lymphoblastic leukemia, chronic lymphocytic leukemia, and multiple myeloma.